Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like the person staring back at you wasn't enough? Not strong enough? Not smart enough? Not ready enough for the life you want? If you have, you're not alone, because somewhere between our dreams and our fears we all fight a silent battle. A battle with the voice that whispers, "You can't." This is the story of Arham. A story that might just make you see yourself differently. A story that'll make you realize the only thing standing between you and your purpose is your belief in you. Tone deepens slightly. Storytelling begins. Arham was an ordinary young man. Smart, capable, full of dreams. But every time opportunity knocked, doubt answered first. He would plan big, imagine everything perfectly in his head, and then destroy it all with one question. What if I fail? It's strange, isn't it? We don't fear the mountain ahead. We fear the thought that we can't climb it. That's how Arham lived, constantly trapped between wanting more and fearing too much. He'd see people speaking confidently, chasing dreams fearlessly, and somewhere inside he'd whisper, maybe they were born different. But the truth was, they weren't. They had doubts too. They just stopped letting doubt make their decisions. One day, Arham's college announced a youth event, a platform to share personal stories that inspire change. His friends pushed him to participate. "Arham, you've got a story. You can speak." He smiled politely, but inside the storm started. What if I forget my words? What if they laugh? What if I'm just not good enough? That night, he sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling. A million dreams pulling him forward and one voice holding him back, and that voice was winning. Days passed. The event approached. Arham avoided eye contact with the organizers, hoping they'd forget his name. But life has a funny way of confronting what you run from. On the final day, one of his friends said, "Bro, they still have a slot open. This is your chance. Say yes." Something in Arham shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the quiet pain of seeing others do what he was meant to do. He looked up and whispered, "Okay, I'll do it." Tone softens, emotional and slow. That night, he practiced again and again. His voice trembled, hands shook, and yet he didn't quit. For the first time, he wasn't trying to be perfect. He was just trying to be brave, and that right there was the turning point, because courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a whisper that says, "I'll try again tomorrow." The next morning, Arham stood backstage, heart pounding so hard he could hear it echo in his chest. He could see the crowd, hundreds of faces, lights, cameras, everything his fear warned him about. But this time, he smiled, because he finally understood something. Fear only grows when you feed it. Confidence grows when you face it. When his name was called, he stepped onto the stage. His palms were sweating, his throat was dry, but he began to speak. At first, his voice trembled, but slowly, word by word, something changed. He saw heads nodding. He heard claps. He felt connection, and for the first time, he realized people weren't judging him. They were feeling him. By the time he finished, the audience stood and applauded. Arham stood there, speechless, not because he had won anything, but because he had faced himself and won everything. Tone slows, reflective close. That day, Arham learned something that changed his life forever. He realized that self-doubt never disappears. It waits quietly for you to stop believing again. But the next time it comes, you'll be stronger. Because once you've faced the storm, you know what calm feels like. And that calm, that's peace. That's confidence. Softer outro, gentle and inspiring. So if you're listening to this right now, and there's a voice in your head telling you that you're not ready, don't fight it. Smile at it. And take the step anyway, because doubt will always exist, but so will courage. And every time you choose courage, you rewrite the story of your life. Sometimes after a big victory, silence feels strange. You expect fireworks, but all you hear is your own breathing. That's what Arham felt after the event. Everyone congratulated him. Pats on the back, messages online, even teachers saying, "You've inspired us." But inside, he whispered, was it luck? Or was it really me? Self-doubt doesn't vanish after one success. It hides in the corners of your mind, waiting for the lights to go out. A week later, he watched the video recording of his speech. For a moment, he smiled, and he had really done it. But then he noticed his shaky hands, his voice cracking at the start, and the loop began again. I wasn't that good. They just clapped to be nice. Maybe I don't deserve the praise. And just like that, the old voice returned, quiet, familiar, poisonous. That night, Aram sat at his desk staring at his reflection in the dark window. He whispered, "Why do I keep doing this to myself?" And the reflection seemed to answer, "Because you never learned to believe that you're enough." Those words hit him like truth. Tone warms, introspective. He realized something powerful. We spend so much time chasing confidence. But real confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It's peace. It's when you no longer need the world to clap to know you're worthy. Aram started journaling that night. He wrote one simple line, "Tomorrow I'll start building faith, one small win at a time." The next morning, he kept that promise. He began his days differently. No social media, no noise. Just 10 minutes of silence, breathing, grounding himself. He would whisper, "Today, I'll trust myself, even if no one else does." It wasn't magic. He still had bad days, but something was changing inside. Slowly, quietly, like sunrise behind clouds. One afternoon, a close friend visited him. They talked about life, goals, and dreams. His friend said, "Bro, I wish I had your confidence." Aram laughed. "Confidence? You think I don't get scared?" He leaned forward and said softly, "Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's learning to move with it." His friend stared at him for a moment and said, "Then maybe I can try too." And that's when Aram realized growth multiplies when it's shared. Tone rises, motivational midsection. Weeks turned into months. Aram started helping classmates with presentations, guiding them to speak with heart instead of perfection. He'd say, "Forget how you sound. Focus on what you mean." Each time someone thanked him, a part of his old doubt melted away. Because purpose kills self-doubt. When you start helping others, your focus shifts from proving yourself to serving something bigger. But life always tests lessons learned. One evening, Aram received a message, an invitation to speak at a local youth seminar. A larger audience, professional speakers, cameras. His heart skipped. Here it was again, that voice. You? In front of them? They'll see right through you. He felt fear crawl up his spine. For a few minutes, he wanted to say no. Then he remembered the line in his journal. One small win at a time. So he said yes. Tone slows. Emotional buildup. Preparation wasn't easy. Every night, doubt whispered, "You're not ready." And every night he answered, maybe not, but I'm trying. By the week of the event, something strange happened. He didn't feel fearless. He felt calm, and sometimes calm is the loudest sign of growth. The day arrived. Backstage, he watched other speakers, confident, polished, effortless. But when his turn came, he walked up with a different energy. He wasn't there to impress. He was there to express. He began, "A few months ago, I couldn't even stand on a stage without shaking. Today, I still feel fear, but I also feel gratitude." The audience leaned in. They weren't watching a performer. They were watching truth. By the end of his talk, people were clapping, some even teary-eyed. And Arham? He was smiling. Not because they applauded, but because for the first time, he didn't need them to. Tone softens. Reflective closing. Later that night, he sat on his balcony feeling the cool air brush his face. He whispered, "I think I'm finally starting to trust myself." It wasn't a shout of victory. It was peace. He realized that self-belief isn't built overnight. It's built moment by moment. Through every time you show up, even when no one's watching. Outro tone, inspiring and calm. So if you're listening to this, and you keep asking, when will I finally believe in myself? The answer is now. Start now, because belief doesn't begin when others trust you. It begins the moment you stop running from who you are. You know what no one tells you about growth? It doesn't come wrapped in motivation. It comes wrapped in tests. The universe doesn't ask, "Are you ready?" It just sends you the storm and watches what you do when it hits. That's what Arham was about to learn. Months after his last speech, life felt good. He was building confidence, helping others, finding rhythm. For the first time, he felt like he had control. But one message, one unexpected opportunity, changed everything. A well-known organization reached out. They wanted him to speak at a national youth event. Thousands of students, cameras, media coverage. The biggest stage of his life. At first, he froze. Then he smiled. Remembering how far he'd come, he said yes. But deep down, that old voice still whispered, "This time, you'll fail in front of everyone." Tone deepens. Internal conflict. Days before the event, pressure started to build. He tried to rehearse, but nothing felt right. His words sounded empty, forced. He could feel the weight of expectations crushing him. Every night he lay awake, hearing two voices, one saying, "You've got this," the other whispering, "You're faking it." The second voice was winning. On the night before the event, Arham walked out onto the terrace. The city lights flickered below, quiet and distant. He whispered to himself, "What if I forget everything again? What if I'm just pretending to be confident?" And somewhere inside, a calmer voice replied, "Then at least you're pretending to be the person you want to become." He smiled. That was enough reason to show up. Tone lifts, event day. The next morning, he stood backstage. The stage lights were blinding, the crowd enormous. He could hear his name being announced. For a second, his hands trembled. The same fear, the same rush. But this time, he remembered the line he had written months ago. "Today, I'll trust myself, even if no one else does." And with that, he walked out. The hall was massive. Thousands of faces. For a moment, he forgot every line he had rehearsed. His mind went blank. Panic tried to take over, but then silence. And in that silence, he remembered why he was there. Not to impress. Not to prove, but to share. He took a deep breath and began. When I was younger, I believed confidence meant being fearless. But now I know it's simply refusing to quit, even when you're scared. The words started to flow naturally. He didn't recite. He spoke. He didn't perform. He connected. He told them about his failures, his fear, his anxiety, and how he learned to stop fighting doubt and start walking with it. Every line came from his heart. And you could feel it. The audience wasn't just listening. They were feeling every word. Tone slows. Emotional turning point. Halfway through, he shared a line that changed everything. He said, "I used to think people who believed in themselves were lucky. Now I know they're just tired of believing their fears." The hall went silent. Then one by one, people began to stand and applaud, not out of excitement, but out of understanding it wasn't just his story anymore. It was everyone's. Tone softens. Reflective close. When the event ended, he walked outside into the night. Cool wind brushed his face, and for the first time, he didn't feel like he was chasing confidence anymore. He was confidence. Quiet, grounded, peaceful. He realized something profound that night. Confidence doesn't mean you stop doubting. It means you stop letting doubt make your choices. The next day, messages flooded in, people saying how his story gave them courage, how they saw themselves in his journey. He read every message with a gentle smile because deep down he knew he wasn't inspiring people by being perfect. He was inspiring them by being real. Tone becomes calm, thoughtful. That night, as he closed his journal, he wrote one last line. "Fear used to be my prison. Now it's my teacher." And that's when he understood. Growth never ends. It's not a straight line. It's a dance between doubt and determination. And every time you choose to step forward, even trembling, you win. Soft outro tone, cinematic fade. So, if you've ever wondered why life keeps testing you even after you've grown, it's because strength isn't proven in peace. It's proven in chaos. The goal isn't to never doubt yourself again. It's to trust yourself even when doubt returns. Because that's what real confidence sounds like. Quiet, calm, and unshakable. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise finally fades, when the battles you once fought inside your mind turn into memories that no longer hurt. That's where Aram was now. Months had passed since the national event. His story had reached people far beyond his circle, strangers writing to him, sharing how his words made them believe again. He never called himself a speaker. He called himself a student of faith, because to him, confidence was never a finish line. It was a daily practice, like breathing. Tone warms. Storytelling continues. He started a small online community called the Mirror Movement, a space for people to share their stories of struggle, fear, and healing. Every week, he'd post short videos, not fancy, not edited, just raw truths. He'd say things like, "Your mistakes don't define you. Your recovery does." Confidence isn't about being loud. It's about being real. And slowly people began to open up. Hundreds of stories. Thousands of hearts finding courage again. Arham read every message, often smiling to himself. He wasn't famous, but he was free. Tone deepens. Emotional shift. Then one day an envelope arrived. No logo, no fancy letterhead. just an old-school emblem on the corner. When he opened it, he froze. It was an invitation from his old school. The same one where he had once frozen on stage years ago. The same place where his fear began. They wanted him to return, as a guest speaker. For a moment, he laughed quietly. "Life really does come full circle," he whispered. "Tone builds, cinematic intensity." The day of the event arrived. The school auditorium looked smaller now, but the memories felt big. As he stood backstage, he could almost hear his younger self, that scared boy, shaking, unsure, terrified of failing. He smiled softly and whispered, "We made it, didn't we?" And then, when his name was called, he walked out. Tone calm, steady, and voice of maturity. He looked at the students. Bright eyes, restless dreams, silent fears. He didn't rush. He took a deep breath and began. "Years ago, I stood on this very stage and forgot every word I memorized. I remember the laughter. I remember the silence. But I also remember what it taught me, that falling doesn't mean you're weak. It means you tried." The hall went silent, not out of pity, but out of respect. He continued, "If you take one thing from me today, let it be this. Your worth isn't decided by how many times you fall, but by how many times you rise anyway." The audience clapped, slow at first, then louder until the entire hall stood. But Arham didn't feel pride. He felt peace. Tone softens, emotional resolution. Later that evening, he walked to the old school garden, the same bench he used to sit on after classes. The air smelled the same, a mix of earth and nostalgia. He sat down and smiled to himself. Everything he had run from had led him right back here. He thought about every failure, every night of doubt, every moment he almost gave up, and realized they weren't curses. They were teachers. He whispered softly. It was never about removing doubt. It was about learning to move with it. Tone fades into quiet reflection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Arham stood up to leave. But before walking out, he noticed a young boy under a tree, pacing nervously, holding a piece of paper. "Stage fright?" Arham asked. The boy nodded. "I'll forget everything. I always do." Arham smiled, took a small note from his pocket, and handed it to him. "Read this before you go up." The boy unfolded it. It said, "Trust, try, repeat." The same words that had once changed Arham's life. The boy smiled, and Arham walked away, quietly, peacefully. The circle was complete. Tone slows, final reflection. That night, Arham stood by his window, city lights glowing below. He thought about everything, the fear, the doubt, the victories, the peace. And then he whispered, "I think I finally understand what strength really means. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't shout to be seen. True strength is silent. It's the calm that comes when you finally stop fighting yourself." Outro Tone, inspiring, heartfelt. So if you're listening to this right now, and you've been carrying doubt for too long, remember this: you don't need to kill your fear. You just need to stop obeying it, because doubt doesn't define you. Your next step does, and when you take that step, when you choose to trust yourself again, you become unstoppable. Here is the best Kutein for you in the last. The goal was never to be fearless. It was to be unshakable. Because when you believe in yourself, doubt becomes just another voice you've learned not to listen to.